It's 1907, and the entire U.S. economy teeters on the brink of collapse. But then, one individual intervenes to rescue it. What if I revealed that this person wasn't a president or even a politician? He was a banker. Let me demonstrate how J.P. Morgan didn't merely influence finance. He revolutionized the entire system. This individual possessed such tremendous wealth that he was called upon to rescue America's economy not once, but twice. This is the chronicle of John Pierpont Morgan, a banker who prevented America from economic devastation. Here's the reality. To numerous people, J.P. Morgan represented a hero. He essentially rescued capitalism from destruction. But to countless others, he embodied greed and monopolistic control. Over the years, this relentless criticism and constant public examination gradually destroyed him. By his final moments, he was merely a shell of his former self, frail, isolated, and suffering mentally. Early life. Born into extraordinary privilege. On this channel, we frequently discuss legendary financial figures emerging from modest circumstances. But this wasn't remotely true for John Pierpont Morgan. I'm not overstating when I declare he entered a family of tremendous privilege in 1837. His trajectory was established with opportunities only a handful could imagine. James Pierpont, his maternal ancestor, co-established Yale University. His grandfather contributed significantly to founding the Aetna Insurance Company, and his father, Junius Spencer Morgan, transitioned from managing a Hartford dry goods enterprise to becoming a partner in an esteemed London-based merchant banking institution. With these associations, it's hardly surprising that J.P. Morgan, upon reaching adulthood, possessed an enormous advantage in his profession. In 1856, he enters banking through his father's London operation. The subsequent year, he relocates to New York for Duncan Sherman and Company, affiliated with George Peabody and Company, among the era's most powerful merchant banking establishments. Here, he acquires financial expertise and access to an exclusive network of financiers and industrialists, enabling him to establish J. Pierpont Morgan and Company in 1860. While his profession flourishes, he's summoned for Civil War service. However, he circumvents military duty by compensating for a replacement soldier, which was entirely lawful during this period. Beyond avoiding service, he actually identified a business opportunity. He ended up providing war materials and generating substantial profit, but he quickly encountered problems for selling defective rifles to the Union Army. Investigations commenced, but his excellent attorneys proved he lacked knowledge about the weapon's conditions, clearing him of deliberate wrongdoing. Building the empire, railroads, and industrial domination. Now examine 1865. The Civil War concluded, and economic expansion was spreading throughout the United States. The nation was industrializing, tremendous velocity. Morgan's connections to George Peabody provided him exclusive access to London's financial aristocracy, and he exploited these relationships to obtain capital from British associates. The rapidly expanding United States craved foreign capital, and there he stood, J.P. Morgan, positioned to serve as intermediary. He became a partner in Drexel Morgan and Company, and the establishment became central in financing major infrastructure initiatives for America. He immediately asserted himself aggressively. He ruthlessly expanded his domain, targeting this period's most vital industry, railroads. In 1869, Morgan commanded a syndicate that helped eliminate existing government financing advantages to select participants. This created opportunities for Morgan to penetrate railroad development and consolidation more deeply. Morgan's methodology of acquiring struggling enterprises and reorganizing them became known as Morganization. This represents a philosophy numerous major consulting organizations employ today, termed right-sizing or downsizing operations. Morgan envisioned creating a nationwide integrated transportation network. When Congress enacted the Interstate Commerce Act in 1887, Morgan was prepared. He organized industry conferences and assembled railroad executives to establish fair, stable, and consistent rates. With this masterful maneuver, he converted a crisis into an opportunity and transformed ruthless competition into coordinated endeavors to stabilize the sector. Approaching the century's turn, Morgan had obtained control over enormous portions of the railroad sector. According to certain calculations, Approximately 1/6 of America's rail infrastructure existed under his influence or direct supervision. Electricity and steel, relentless expansion. But he desired more. In 1891, he accomplished one of his most remarkable achievements, arranging the combination of Edison General Electric and Thomas Houston Electric Company. The outcome was General Electric, what we recognize today as GE. This directly confronted another industrial giant, John D. Rockefeller. Rockefeller's Standard Oil prospered on kerosene demand to illuminate America's oil lamps. Therefore, Rockefeller discovered himself threatened as electrical lighting started replacing conventional fuel. He responded with an aggressive defamation campaign, distributing frightening narratives in publications about electricity's supposed hazards. But his endeavors proved futile. Electricity's advantages were irrefutable, and Morgan's vision prevailed. But Morgan wasn't finished. Following his father's passing, he assumed complete authority of his father's financial domain and targeted steel. In 1900, he initiated discussions with Charles M. Schwab and Andrew Carnegie. His objective was purchasing Carnegie's operation and numerous other steel and iron enterprises to establish the United States Steel Corporation. Carnegie consented to transfer his enterprise to J.P. Morgan for $480 million. Adjusted for contemporary inflation, that would approximate $17 billion. During that period, that represented nearly 3% of America's GDP. What's fascinating is this enormous transaction occurred without any attorneys or formal documentation. It was merely a simple handshake. This formed the United States Steel Corporation, with authorized capitalization of $1.4 billion. At this moment, J.P. Morgan had created the world's inaugural billion-dollar corporation. At its zenith, U.S. Steel controlled 2/3 of the steel industry. Morgan's power was now incomparable. Saving America twice. By now, Morgan's power was so formidable that citizens looked to him to rescue the economy during crisis periods. His capability to command resources and mobilize key participants made him a critical figure in an era when the United States lacked a central bank. In 1895, the nation confronted a major financial catastrophe threatening the gold standard. Morgan led a banking syndicate to loan the federal government more than $60 million in gold. This audacious action helped stabilize the economy and restored public trust. Essentially, J.P. Morgan rescued the country. But that wasn't the sole occasion. In 1907, the markets were again experiencing chaos, and financial institutions approached collapse. And guess who intervenes? Precisely, J.P. Morgan. He assembled the nation's premier financiers into his New York residence and directed negotiations. They managed to combine their resources and rescue the collapsing institutions, preventing complete economic catastrophe. It's the second occasion that J.P. Morgan rescued the nation from financial destruction. By the early 1900s, J.P. Morgan had achieved the summit of his profession. His establishment and its associates controlled assets worth an astounding $1.3 billion. But this magnitude of power and tremendous influence wasn't unquestioned. The fall, from hero to public enemy. Critics became increasingly outspoken. They contended that his wealth concentration and power undermined free competition. Citizens feared that excessive economic control rested in just one individual's hands. Eventually, the so-called hero who once rescued the American economy twice became a villain in public perception. Progressive politicians, journalists, and public members accused him of exercising excessive authority and manipulating the financial apparatus. J.P. Morgan's supremacy was challenged in 1912. He was summoned to testify before a congressional committee investigating the so-called money trust, a collection of elite Wall Street financiers accused of conspiring to dominate American banking. Morgan was identified as enemy number one. These hearings represented a pivotal moment in public sentiment. It indicated a transition towards greater banking and industry regulation. Morgan had withdrawn from actively managing his enterprises, but he couldn't experience peaceful retirement. He spent his final years under tremendous pressure and examination. The committee hearings imposed a devastating toll on him. Even though he maintained composure during proceedings, The experience proved deeply disturbing and marked a decline in his condition. His situation deteriorated when he experienced a mental collapse. He encountered severe anxiety and paranoia. Morgan started losing his grasp on reality. He became convinced that Egyptians were conspiring to assassinate him. Just 1 year following these hearings, J.P. Morgan passed away. Legacy: shaping modern finance. He transferred his enormous domain to his son, J.P. Morgan Jr. However, his son lacked identical talents and vision. He could accomplish little to prevent the comprehensive financial reforms of the 1930s, including the Glass-Steagall Act of 1933. This legislation mandated the dissolution of Morgan's financial domain into 3 distinct entities: J.P. Morgan, Morgan Stanley, and Morgan Grenfell. 2 of these still operate today with market capitalizations of $700 billion and $27 billion, respectively. Today, nobody from the Morgan family emerges as a billionaire or significant participant in global finance. But you can still observe J.P. Morgan's enduring legacy. Morgan's impact on modern finance is nearly impossible to overemphasize. He pioneered contemporary investment banking techniques, including underwriting securities and facilitating mergers and acquisitions. He established specialized syndicates to combine resources, distribute risks, and address large-scale financial initiatives. Before Morgan's period, individual banks couldn't finance enormous ventures. Because of him, it became feasible to finance mega-projects with unprecedented magnitude. Under Morgan, the establishment started thoroughly analyzing numbers and examining companies closely before investing. This established a new benchmark for financial due diligence, now normalized in the venture capital sector today. Perhaps Morgan's greatest legacy is Morganization, the methodology which saw bankers assume an active role in managing and restructuring the companies they financed. Morgan and his associates frequently joined company boards and influenced corporate strategy. This made bankers essential participants in America's industrial advancement. Corporate restructuring, downsizing, and right-sizing, all of this affects millions of individuals worldwide today. The divided legacy. Throughout history, we observe numerous financial figures emerge and disappear, but very few have created as profound an impact as J.P. Morgan. Without Morgan's interventions and financial innovations, Wall Street may have never achieved global supremacy. It wouldn't be exaggerating to declare that America's industrial expansion and influence would not exist as it does today without J.P. Morgan. But J.P. Morgan was and remains an extremely divisive figure. His legacy is characterized by tremendous successes, but also by highly questionable methods. On one side, you have expansion, innovation, and progress. On the opposite side, you have ethical accountability, power, and monopoly. What's the proper equilibrium? To some individuals, Morgan was a visionary who stabilized markets, modernized banking, and rescued capitalism. To others, he was a symbol of unchecked authority and ruthless financial practices, an oligarch wielding influence to dominate industries for his own gain. Now, if you've reached this point, make sure to drop a $sign in the comments. Subscribe if you haven't already. And check out this video about the Rockefellers. I mentioned the rivalry between Rockefeller and J.P. Morgan earlier. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.